What are Shaidim?
Let me see. It's a very interesting question, okay. Let me see if I can approach the question, obviously, to the best of my limited ability, from a point of view which is not about weird stuff, if you will, and strange interactions, but from a point of view which gives order to this question that can be understood in a logical way. The beginning of the answer to this question is a premise. And the premise is that Yiddishkeit believes in life. What I mean when I say that Yiddishkeit believes in life is that we do not believe that living things are living because of their physiology alone. Every living thing has a neshama, has a soul. In other words, a human being is an interface of a body which is made up of very complex order. That is a seat, that is a vehicle and a vessel for life. But what creates that complex order and what sustains that complex order and what animates that complex order and gives it its purpose is a neshama, is a soul which is metaphysical, which is not physical. This is a basic belief in Torah. According to the Arizal, which is brought in Tanya, even a daimim, a mineral. Daimim doesn't mean inanimate, right? The Rebbe once wrote to Rabbi Nissen Mendel that he shouldn't refer to a daimim as inanimate because even a daimim is animated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol rega v'rega. So the word daimim means a silent one, a being that says nothing. There's also living. Its order and its purpose has some kind of a soul. So this is the foundation, that everything you see has life. In some things the life is very dynamic, in some things the life is very passive, in some things the life is completely invisible, you can't see it at all. With this foundation, with this basis, I'm going to attempt to answer the question. According to Torah, the universe exists of 3 levels of physical things, and accordingly 3 levels of life. They're called Chomer, Tzura, and Tikkun. Chomer means raw matter, basic matter, what some people would call the Greek atom, or what's called in many Rishonim Chomer HaChamishi, the 5th element. The 5th element is the beginning of the 4 elements, right? In Torah there are 4 elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. And they're composites, they're a combination of a tzura, of a form, with the chomer hiyuli, with the original material from which the Eibishter created everything. The idea of chomer, or what's called the Greek atom, or the 5th element, means a particle, a physical thing which is so small that it's indivisible, you can't divide it. And all that exists is made up of this chomer. And then Ramban writes in Bereshis Bara Elokim Eis Hashmayim Ve'eis Ha'aretz, that this pasuk, the Rambam really says it, that Bereshis Bara Elokim Eis Hashmayim Ve'eis Ha'aretz means Hashem created chomer, these particles of infinitesimally small pieces. How small are they? They can't be anything smaller. And all that is comprised of these little pieces. But there's 2 classes. There's Chomer HaShamayim and Chomer Ha'aretz, Eis Hashmayim Ve'eis Ha'aretz. What's the difference? The difference is that the chomer, these particles as they exist in the shamayim, do not coalesce. They don't glue together into bigger and bigger things. They don't become complex. They remain in their plain form. And this is the first level of physical things. And this goes on galgalim. Galgalim basically means empty space, or what looks to us like empty space. Al pi Torah, galgalim are units. They're units of empty space, which are living things that to us appear entirely empty and transparent, and they don't interfere with us. When you go through space, you don't feel like there's any friction. And they're the physical units of space that are made up of these tiny little pieces, and they're living. And their life is the malachim. The galgalim, the heavens, live from the angels, from the malachim. This idea that the heavens are made up of physical particles which are invisible, so to speak, that don't interfere with us, don't interact with anything, And they're made up of units called galgalim. And these galgalim have life. And the life is malachim, was discussed at very great length, in the Meir Nevuchim. The second chelik of Meir Nevuchim, the first chunk of prakim, he deals with malach. And that's what we discuss as malach. That's the first level, called chomer. The second level is called tzura. Tzura means that these tiny particles take on potential forms. And in general, there are four. Eish, ruach, mayim, and afer. The form of fire, wind, water, and earth. And there's letters from the Rebbe where the Rebbe talks about these four elements. And he gives alternative definitions for them. That Eish, fire, is cham v'yavish, hot and dry. And Ruach is cham v'lach, is hot and moist. And Mayim is kar v'lach, moist and cool. And Afar is kar v'yavish, cold and dry. These four tzuras, these four elements, fire, wind, water, and earth, are not the same thing as chemical elements. In other words, just like the Chomer Arishein, the basic building blocks of matter are not composites, they're plain. These four elements, fire, wind, water, and earth, are more basic than the elements which you learn about in chemistry. There's a letter from the Rebbe, and there have been a number of different opportunities for the Rebbe to discuss this with people. There's a letter in Igros Kodesh, and also in Likutei Sichos, where the Rebbe says that every atom consists of all four: fire, wind, water, and earth. So these four elements, these four tzuras, as they're called, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar, also are living. And their life is Shaidim. Their life is the spirits. Ruchais, they're called. Now I just want you to know that this is where the complication is, because the Rambam holds that the Dalet Tzuras are Goyim. The Rambam holds that Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar have no life at all. They're dead. They have no life. In other words, the Rambam agrees that the Galgalim, that the heavens live from Malachim, but he disagrees about the Tzuris, that there's no life in the four elements. A lot of other Rishonim say that there are life in the four elements, and this goes on the Shaidim. There are spirits of fire, spirits of wind, spirits of water, and spirits of earth. And there are stories in the Gemara that describe these Shaidim, that because they already have the beginnings of complex forms, which what physical things are, as we are able to observe them, sometimes people interact with them. There's some interesting stories in the Gemara. The discussion of this is found in Rishonim Pashas, either Achrei or Kedoshim, where it says, "V'leitizbechu eid l'seirim." The Rishonim discuss, the Rabbi Bachai discusses at length the Dalet Tzuris and the Shaidim. And of course, amongst the things that he says about them, brings from the Chazal that these living things are in three ways like the Malachim, that they can fly and they can know the future, but in three ways they're like people. They're parim v'ravim k'bnei adam, they multiply like people, they eat and drink like people, and they die. So they're sort of an in-between class. And I want to observe something that many people miss, that the Rashi in Pashas Neach says that when Neach took all living things into the Teva, he also took Shaidim, a pair of Shaidim. And then, of course, the third level of the physical reality is complex, what's called murkavim, complex physical beings that are made up of all four elements, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. Every physical thing that you and I can see or hear or smell or taste or touch or measure by force or by energy of one sort or another is made up of all four elements, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. And we also have life. And our life, depending on our level, is either called nefesh or ruach or neshama. And it's interesting that in the Hasidic culture, in the Kabbalah culture, neshama is considered higher than nefesh and ruach. When the Rambam talks about these things, he sees neshama as something that human beings have in common with animals. And the soul, which is unique to human beings, he calls nefesh or ruach. So to summarize, there's three levels of life. There's three levels of physical things, and accordingly there's three levels of life. The highest level of physical things is Chomer Yuli, and this goes on the heavens, and their life is from the Malachim. The middle level is the Dalet Tzuras, the life is from the Shaidim. And the lowest level is Batei Chomer, complex things, and their life is from the Shomes or Nefesh or Ruach. And this is the way we experience life. In short, everything we see, everything that we experience around ourselves is living. And of course, we are considered the lowest level of life. And the purpose of creation is about us. We're from the perspective of Torah, the lowest point in the universe, the center of the universe, the furthest away from where the Eibishter is, Reicha Varavis, and we're the point of it all.